I have a brief Star Wars rant, if you will indulge me.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I mean, it's I'm mainly looking at the video games for this here mini rant, but I just started playing Jedi Fallen Order, I guess the newest of the Star Wars games to come out recently.
Mhm.
It's on sale, so I finally grabbed it because it was just a game where I never really wanted to pay $60 for it. Kind of tell, and I'm glad I didn't. Honestly, like it's
Oh,
fun.
really? Mostly decent things about it. I heard it's hard.
Yeah, I mean it's fun and it's like a decent game, but it just like it feels like it doesn't have its own identity. It's
Hmm.
like trying to be Dark Souls, it's trying to be Uncharted, all with this like Star Wars skin on top of it. So it just kind of feels like this mishmash of things. It's also pretty glitchy too. I've had a lot
Oh,
of
really?
problems. But I mean, just like all in all, with like what Star Wars video games have been since it's been handed over to EA is just so sad and heartbreaking. They've put out two, three games since they have acquired Star Wars, and like before that, think about like all of the Star Wars games that were getting pumped out when we were kids. You know, like the original Battlefront games, all of like the Jedi Academy games,
Lego
like
Star Wars.
Lego Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, just so many classics. And now we just get like three like mediocre games, and there's just so much potential with the Star Wars universe. It's all just so
Yeah,
thrashed and trashed, and
that's one thing that's always boggled me is that it's like I feel like Star Wars should be treated less like they shouldn't feel like they're so linked to the movies. It should be treated more like something like the Elder Scrolls or like
yeah,
Fallout, where it's like just like
exactly.
a canon, like it's like a like a universe to
And it
create totally separate and like standalone stories in.
and it doesn't all have to be around Jedi's and the
Yeah.
Force.
Yeah.
We can have a Star Wars movie or show or anything, and there doesn't have to be Jedi and the Force. Like Star Wars is cool enough. Like yes, the Jedi are really cool, but it's sad. I want better for Star Wars, but since this Disney acquisition, it has not really gotten that.
Well, that's the thing. They just like Disney and EA more than anything. I feel like they're gonna play it safe, and we've kind of seen that. Like everything ultimately, just like I feel like becomes, especially with Star Wars, it always just becomes a Star Wars skin over another game. Like
Exactly.
Battlefront's just like generic Call of Duty or Battlefield or like what Battlefield really because it's EA, I
Yeah.
guess EA and Dice. It's just Battlefield with a Star Wars skin, and it's like. I don't want to play Battlefield. Like I don't like
Uh,
I want more substance. Like Star Wars has substance where like Russian soldiers and American soldiers fighting each other like doesn't and with
yeah.
Battlefield. Like
With Jedi Fallen Order 2 and with a lot of other Star Wars games, I feel like they never get like how a lightsaber feels quite right, if you know what I mean.
well, you're not
Not that
chopping
I know.
anybody into pieces. That's the
Yeah,
problem. They're like it's got to be
exactly.
teens so that
It's just like
kids
it
can play.
whack. It's like a big stick that whacks
Yeah,
people. I want to feel that slice.
I know. Well, the old Star Wars, I can't remember which. I think the Jedi Academy games, they all had cheat codes where you could like turn on like dismemberment and like you could like hack people's heads and arms off. Which I feel like is how a lightsaber should like. It's how it should operate. Like the movies got away with that stuff and still kept it like PG-13. I feel like you could do a T-rated Star Wars game where you can
Yeah,
still like hack some fools into pieces with your lightsaber.
yeah,
Doesn't have
some
to be
stormtrooper.
bloody.
It's 2020. We have the technology.
Yeah. Welcome to Strange Conversations, where rock and roll isn't dead. It's just a little too busy being the CEO of Antifa right now. I'm Dylan Bennett.
And I am Austin Kenny, and this week's album is Perfume Genius's Set My Heart on Fire Immediately, their fifth studio album. And boy, howdy, am I excited to talk about this one. I'm fresh off a listen. A few other facts and figures before we get into the meat of this baby. Matador Records is the label who we have talked about at length in previous episodes. Our car seat headrest episode, and our Stephen Malcolmus one way back when. That was episode like 2 or 3.
We got what does that make it? A 25% Matador rate, 25% by volume or whatever. Matador.
Yeah. Three Matador albums, and 3 times where Matador still hasn't noticed us. Perfume Genius is the stage name of Michael Alden Hadries. He is based in Brooklyn, I believe, originally from around the Seattle area. Has put out, I think, just increasingly gotten better. Each album has like proven that he is just like pushing himself and pushing and pushing. This album is just it's really phenomenal.
I don't really understand how he hasn't like kind of exploded more. I see him almost as it always strikes me not as that like his music stands out on Matadors as being different, but the quality, like the type of music he's making, I feel like does have like a strong mainstream appeal that makes me always like amazed that he hasn't been sort of scooped up by like, I don't know, like I feel like he could easily do like the musical soundscape and like
be more pop.
Yeah, well, like almost
I mean,
like
he is pop, but
almost like he could be a Jack Antonoff, I think that's his name, like where he makes the music and like really basically is like the writer and like the architect of like pop stars music, and it's like it's like Jack Antonoff featuring Taylor Swift, but for some reason like Taylor Swift gets the credit because she's like the singer, even though it's basically an entire album made by Jack Antonoff. Like I could see Perfume like he probably doesn't want to be like that, which I totally props to him. But like his music and his like the soundscapes he creates, they give me that feeling where like I could totally see it being like, you know, I don't know any pop stars at the moment. I was about to name somebody who's probably like 10 years out of fashion. I feel like that makes me feel really old. But I could see him fitting into the pop world like as it is right now in like that kind of like the musical architect and writer role. But at the same time, I think he deserves to be at the front and center. So I guess I am kind of glad maybe he hasn't fallen into that like Jack Antonoff kind of role where like you just become like the de facto pop writer of all artists.
Yeah. And I personally have only recently gotten into Perfume Genius. Honestly, since this album has been announced, is really like there were a couple tracks in the past. I like the song Queen a lot, and that was really it. That was like the one song that I was really into by Perfume Genius. But then I don't know, I just decided to listen to these singles for this, and they're just like so good. It was On the Floor and Describe were the Describe was first, I think, and On the Floor was second maybe, but both just phenomenal singles. And so then I was like, now I want to listen to more Perfume Genius after getting like a flavor from these singles. And really like each album increasingly like gets better. It's so cool. And I think maybe this being like the best, like I had a great listening experience with it.
I had a very lopsided experience. I think that this album, for me, I love I don't know quite the vinyl breakdown, but if I had to draw like a line right through the middle, I would say I really love side A, and I really got bored of side B. Like I didn't hate it, but it just really just lost my interest. I think it's because side B is much more just like the songs are much more kind of ethereal and like atmospheric and slower, and the mood is a bit more contemplative, and so it really just like I kept being like, I want to hear some drums, I want to hear some drums, I want to hear some percussion, and it just
It
never really.
reminds me a lot of Spiritualized. That's like, if I was like thinking that when I was listening to this album, I think it's something super incredibly unique as far as like modern music. A lot of like indie rock bands I think have some callback to kind of their predecessors, or it's a lot of like revival in a sense, where I think this definitely has kind of its own breath.
Yeah.
But it definitely, the thing I could equate it to most is Spiritualized, and that kind of like spacey, like long, yeah, I don't know, the yeah, just that ethereal sound
Yeah.
where the ladies and gentlemen, we're floating in space. That album, yeah, just I get a very similar vibe.
That's a good point because I do like I while I was listening to it, I just like throughout was just trying to like think like what can I kind of pin this down to as similar to, and I was really struggling. Like I think part of me was thinking like this kind of reminds me of sort of like later like last few Bowie albums like
Mm,
before he
mm-hmm.
passed, like this like a sort of a very kind of like artsy pop, and like a kind of very just like a very playful like soundscape with like throwing everything against the wall and going very minimal like on two halves of the coin, like going back and forth between like walls of sound and then like very sparse, and just lots of different like all sorts of eclectic instruments. I was thinking like, oh, this is a little bit like kind of giving me like some Black Star vibes or
I could
something
see
like
that,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I besides for that, I was really kind of like thinking, like, what does this kind of remind me of? The last half of the album, the part that I didn't really love, I was starting to feel like it had a little bit of the sort of wispy quality of like Lana Del Rey,
Mm.
of some of her sort of like more kind of floaty songs. Like I feel like all of her music is pretty floaty and sort of ethereal, and she's got that like wispy voice. But I was starting to get some of those vibes in the end of the album, but not really the beginning. The I think the beginning has more of like the like active and noisier songs on the album.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the album starts off so strong, like the first song being so important as a hook, where Whole Life uh kind of, I think like pulls you in as like, man, you're really this guy's really about to like open his heart to you with this album. It just like it has such like I think it sets a nice tone for what you get into, and then just it hits you with Describe, like that. Oh, that like, oh, it's almost a shoegaze song
yeah,
in a
yeah,
way. I would definitely say it's got like that shoegaze drone in that main riff.
yeah. That heavy sort of buzzy. I mean, like I want to call it a guitar. Like my instinct is saying guitar, but I guess it really could be any sort of like just overdriven synth or anything. But it really is a cool, just like propulsive sound that gives, and it's used a couple different times throughout the album and a few other songs. And I just really love. It's like a almost sort of like a whatchamacallit, a motif that sort of like
Yeah.
comes back in and out. And I did actually towards like I literally I was like there's like half a second where I feel like one of the songs towards the end, like it just happens for like a quick like 20 seconds and then it's done, and I think it was maybe it might have been One More Try or Some Dream, but I remember getting like all excited. I was like, oh, here it goes, and then it just like is for like the last like 30 seconds of the song or something like that. um but it's cool. It's a very punchy, very yeah, like shoegazy kind of vibe, and I do think Describe is my favorite, or like tied for favorite on the album, just because
Yeah, I
I do
agree.
really like that
I think
ballad.
it's maybe my favorite. It's just it's a banger. It's like if there's a banger on this album, I would say it's probably that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's probably my favorite. I don't know. It's tough. And it goes. I think agree. Where side A has a lot more of like the hits on the album, where I feel like side B kind of gets more into the emotional, like,
Mm.
expressiveness of the album, in a sense, where like Without You, I think, is such a great, like, almost like islandy, I don't know, like Elvisy, like that
I really
Hawaiian,
liked Without You.
it's
Yeah,
got like that ukulele kind of, I don't know, it's
yeah.
just like it sounds so nice, and like it just makes me think of like it's like sad happy music in a sense,
Yeah.
like
It
you're
gets
you're on the beach sad kind of
yeah.
music.
It gets almost into like sort of almost a folk sort of like instruments and but like not fully going down that way. And I like that because I think the 1-2 punch of Describe and Without You is like I think that's my favorite kind of like moment of the album. I also do really like Your Body Changes Everything. But I do really like Without You. I think maybe might be my second favorite song
Mhm.
on the album, just because I think those two next to each other showed me the range of like the musical styles on the album very well. And I think the reason why I started to like kind of lose interest a bit on the later half is because like I really could not tell you the difference in like in sort of like instruments and textures when it came to like Moonbend and Just a Touch, or like One More Try, Some Dream, Borrowed Light. Like all those songs all kind of had the same sort of minimal sort of wispy quality to them that almost distracted me from listening to the words. And I feel bad like admitting that. I've never really been a very good like word and lyric listener. I feel like I
Mm.
always gravitate more towards like the music first, and on then like multiple repeat listenings I start to put together the words and like how that also adds to the meaning. But if we want to get real theoretical, I like the idea of like approaching it like the medium is the message. And so songs like Describe and Without You and Jason, I really like that one too. Your Body Changes
Yeah.
Everything. Those songs had more, they had more emotional power to me, I think, because the music was more evocative to me, whereas I missed a lot of the lyrical emotion and story and like things going on in the later half of the album, because I was pulled out of it by my lack of engagement with the musical palette, like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that, and I think something I've noticed with my listening habits with listening to many albums is I always have a tougher side with side Bs than I
Mm.
do with side As. And with this on the second listen through, or the not the second, but the listen I had right before doing this recording, I focused in on the second half more.
Mm.
And yeah, I think I kind of noticed a little bit more in the songs, but I totally agree where um, like the first half of this album definitely stands, like the songs like stand out a lot more, where side B it does just kind of blend and bend together, which isn't, I don't think, a bad thing. It's just it's a different listening experience on side B than it is on side A.
Mm.
And yeah, I think my theory is not only with this album, but with many albums, I feel like maybe we as listeners sometimes
Yeah.
get
Check
a
out a
little
little.
impatient, yeah, or
Yeah. Although sometimes it doesn't help, because like
yeah.
sometimes I feel like almost like I don't want artists to be almost sort of cliche in the way that they structure their albums. Like I don't want all artists to feel like they need to have like a big bombastic finish to their album, and like they need to like, have like interludes between songs, and that like sometimes artists do structurally different things in the way they like they order their albums, but sometimes I don't think it really pays off all that well. Like I think my favorite example of like a really weird dichotomy between not even necessarily side A and side B. It's like side A fantastic, side B is like half fantastic and half like super boring. Remain in Light. Remain in Light is like all bangers until you get to the very end of side B. And it's like side B starts with, I think it's Once in a Lifetime and then Houses in Motion, and then it's the two like last tracks on the album, which are like the Overload and I can't like I literally can't even name it. And it's like one of my favorite albums, but I literally can't even name the last song on that album. And it's because they're so different from the rest of the album. They're like really long, really wispy, very sort of ethereal, just like slow kind of like plodding songs, and they literally, it's like you're like, oh, Remain in Light, like undoubtedly a great party album. But then it's like you realize you're like, oh, I forgot that this album kind of ends with like two sort of like long
Listening
boring
Wind
albums.
and The Overload are the
That's
last
it. Listening
song.
Wind. Yeah. See,
I just googled it. I didn't know that.
And it's like I think that's like, to me, that's a sort of like a warning where it's like you can have a phenomenal, like I would say Remain in Light is like, if you had to do like the stereotypical like pitchfork thing, like Remain in Light easily gets like a 10 out of 10. It's like incredibly influential, incredibly well made, incredibly exploratory, and like a masterpiece of an album. But even that 10 out of 10 like has just like two whole songs on it that you could take off that album, and I think the album would be better for it.
Would
like
that make it a 10 out of 10?
I think so. I think it's
You're creating a paradox within your own statement.
I know. But that's the thing. I think that the rest of the album is so good that you can just ignore the last two songs and it still is like a 10 out of 10. Like I do that sometimes when I listen to the album. I literally, it's like
sounds like that makes it like a 9.8.
I mean, it could be. It could very well be. I think with a very stringent criteria, a very stringent rubric, that might be it. But I think Houses in Motion and Once in a Lifetime and Born Under Punches and The Great Curve, I think all those songs are so great that like they allow that album to have two just kind of forgettable songs at the very end. And that's something that like I don't think I have the information or the experience or like the listening like depth with this album to say if I like the first half of the album enough to justify the second half losing my interest. I think right now I'm leaning more in the direction of like, not really. I think it's like there's a couple of really solid, really strong songs on the first half, but it's not necessarily like an album that's structured in a way where I'm like, oh, I want this on vinyl because I want to listen to the whole album like in order again. This is more an album where I'm like, oh, there's some songs that I'll definitely pull out and put into playlists because I really like those songs, but I don't necessarily want to listen to the whole album. Like, you know.
I think I was thinking about wanting it on vinyl because I think the production quality on this album is super duper duper crisp and nice and just like well done. And I don't know, a lot of the music I feel like we listen to, I'm not like super into like the production. That's not like a thing I look out for a lot.
Yeah.
But this album in particular, I just like notice good production. It's just like well done. Like the sound is just incredibly laid out, and like it. I want to hear all the nooks and crannies of what are hiding in this album. So for that reason, I think I'm thinking about making the old vinyl purchase on this pup.
It definitely does sound like I can tell that it's an album that like if I turn my headphones up all the way and listen to it, I just like discover so many different things. And also, yeah, I think with vinyl you'd hear so many different things in the mix. I feel like that, like that being said, I also feel like I'm like if I, if the $20 could go to anything, like any album right now, I don't know if this album would beat out like so many other things that I'm like, well, I could get that, I could get that, I could get that.
I know, it's tough. I always like with the Bandcamp day has helped me in like with thinking of records to buy, in the sense where I'm like, all right, I'm trying to buy a lot of newer artists because I don't want this money to like go to dead people or artists, slightly smaller artists too, if there's any relatively local artists I know, or the bands who I know maybe aren't getting as much love on those Bandcamp days. I like to try to support, I think it is somehow it has given me a bit of a compass where I'm like, all right, I want to be thinking of new music, like bands who probably are needing some support right now, and things like that. So that's been my purchase compass recently.
Yeah, I've been trying to let that steer me too. I've definitely been. I think I've been like my motivation has been like, okay, what like this Bandcamp day, what label do I sort of want to focus my efforts on this time? And like I always try to like I did one where it was like I did Troubled in Mind. I think the first Bandcamp day I got some like Fax stuff. And then like there I did one where I did like Hardly Art, and I got Black Marble's first album, and then I think I did like a Sacred Bones one where I got some Sacred Bones stuff. That stuff hasn't come yet, which I'm excited for. I didn't realize I accidentally got like this limited edition album that's like a cool color vinyl. But this band I like on Sacred Bones called Institute has their debut album on Sacred Bones is like so freaking good, and I got that. But it's like a limited edition like color vinyl with, I think it has another album or something in it, like with like demos and stuff. So I was like, I didn't even realize it at first, and then I saw like the order like summary, and I was like, oh shit, like this is gonna be sick. I'm excited for that to come.
Doing this podcast like has made Sacred Bones become one of my favorite record labels. I'd like kind of known about them before, but I don't know. I feel like we end up talking about them a lot because a lot of the
Yeah.
bands. I don't know. I don't know why they've come up so much, but I feel like recently in my life, Sacred Bones has become a big thing, and I've just like fallen in love with them, and they just do cool stuff on top of even like the music. They like do cool book stuff as well on their
Yeah.
website, and
And that's a whole nother like realm I'm afraid to fall down, is
I
like the
know.
realm of like really cool like art books and stuff these labels have. Like Castle Face has a photo, like John Dwyer's like photo and art book. It's like a big like coffee table book of like John Dwyer like art, and I'm like, fuck, like I could totally get that, but like then there'll just be so many other books. So
Yeah,
many other books to get.
just more things to spend more of my
I
money.
know.
Oh, um, yeah. Touching back again to this here, set my heart on fire immediately by Perfume Genius. Um, like I said, I think Perfume Genius. What's that noise in the?
Huh?
Sorry.
Oh, let me the old air conditioning just turned on.
Oh, no worries. I just kind
That's strange. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah,
No worries.
you started getting like quieter and quieter. What's
I was
going
like,
on?
what's going on? Yeah, I just think this is really like a culmination of Perfume Genius, at least from what I know, my very limited knowledge of Perfume Genius. Um, it just really feels like an explosion of music. I think that like the title of the album is just like perfect. Set my heart on fire immediately. It I don't know why, but it does have that kind. It just has like a very explosive quality, but not in like a rock and roll like explosive quality. Just like a sheer emotional explosion. It's wild.
Yeah, it's definitely I will say it's definitely an album that makes me really want to go back and listen to like Perfume Genius's discography and see. I think that like I agree. I basically was coming at this from the same point as you were, where I've heard Queen and I love Queen, like probably Perfume Genius's most I guess popular, most well-known song. Really cool song. But I hadn't really yet like dived into the discography, and this I want to know kind of like, the journey to get to this album. I want to know like what the difference between the older albums is. I think I'll start at the very very beginning and see
Yeah,
how
it's worth
different
it.
it
Because it's
sounds.
like that growth of like bedroom pop to
Mm,
just like incredibly produced like yeah it's a crazy journey. I think
yeah.
it's impressive. and like just so many great stops along the way.
Awesome.
Should we take a quick break? We got a lot of exciting announcements to make here in this break, and for real this time we have an exciting announcement.
Let's do it. We are excited and happy. That was a weird way to say that. We're really excited to announce that our brand is expanding, and we will be launching a twin podcast that has a very specific, and some would say very nerdy focus, but we are super excited to get it off and rolling. We will be doing a D&D focused podcast called The Strange Campaign, which will feature myself as a dungeon master, Austin and our good friends Ben and Rob as our intrepid heroes, possibly with some guest stars, and it'll just be a fun time. It'll be like, it'll basically be like a story podcast.
Yeah, and as well as being like a real play D&D podcast, like you'll hear some of our table talk and our fun laughs and good times, and yeah, we're excited. Dylan has spent maybe too much time crafting a world,
Maybe too much.
but a lot more announcements with this to come along the way. We're gonna be making maybe another Instagram or something like that to post some of the content for it. And yeah, release date TBD, but we are excited for y'all to hear what we've been working on, mainly Dylan and this world he just crafted.
Yeah, I gotta start putting the party through the ringer, because I've definitely put my brain through it to get to here. But I feel like once we played our first session, and it got me just like super excited to have the party venture forward into whatever mess you make for yourself. I highly recommend, even if Dungeons and Dragons is not something that like sounds particularly enticing to you, I will say that about like, this time last year, even earlier than that, I would say like Christmas time, this most recent Christmas time, I was still someone who'd never played Dungeons and Dragons. I did secretly really want to play it, but I also felt like it was super inaccessible, and it seemed like it was something that no one was ever going to invite me to play. Lo and behold, got invited to play, fell in love with it. Now I'm making my own game, spending way too much time thinking about, the name of goblins, or like the shape of like a certain, you know, goo monster, but it's definitely it's definitely got something for everyone. It's essentially like take your favorite movie, take your favorite like comic book or like horror novel, and just like mash them all into like the same thing, and it's basically like what Dungeons and Dragons lets you experience. Like
Yes.
it's your imagination with small rules.
Yeah, and so it's Dylan's first time being a dungeon master. Our friend Rob, it's his first time like playing a real deal session and stuff. So if you haven't played D&D before, we kind of talk about rules and stuff in between playing the game. So it'll be a good place to start, even if you are not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. So for now, just follow our Instagram at strange.convo.pod, and you can find out more about the D&D podcast, as well as a lot of other stuff that we post over there, our playlists, which we do every week. And we've also been doing recently every Monday a strange staff pick. We just kind of put strange in front of whatever we want, and that's just our brand now. But each week,
Get with
Dylan
it,
and I,
Doctor Strange.
yeah,
You're officially under our
yeah.
umbrella now.
No, well, for it's Strange Doctor
Oh,
here.
true. Yeah.
So yeah, each week, Dylan and I pick three different things, three whatever we want them to be. Um, just for you to enjoy, things that we might not get to here in the podcast, but we still hope you will check out. So yeah, lots of stuff going on over there. And also too, I wanted to shout out Perfume Genius, who this episode is on. You should follow them on Instagram. One, because they're a cool musician, but also just they've been posting a lot of great resources during this time. Like right now, there's a link in their bio to that helps to support Black trans women, and just yeah, it's an important time to donate your money to places where you can, especially the queer people of color. They have really got the yeah, they've just gotten a lot of shit, and we gotta help these people out as much as we can, because they've done so much for the world, and like artists like Perfume Genius, like music like this would not exist without people of color giving their influence. So please keep 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 keeping yourself informed, keep educating yourself, donate where you can, and if you can safely get out there and protest, you do that as well.
Yes
Yeah.
to all of the above.
And with that, I think we can hop back into the episode.
Who do you think Spider-Man's favorite punk band is? Who do you think Spider-Man's favorite New York City band is?
Spider-Man?
Peter Parker and Miles Morales. One answer for each.
Peter Parker? What did Peter Parker listen to? Man, I just feel like I don't know why I think the Ramones, just because I feel like Peter Parker's kind of a square. And maybe it's just like I'm imagining too many like Spider-Man movie scenes where like
It's always the Ramones.
Blitzkrieg Bop or something like that. But and all I can think about when I think of Miles Morales is Sunflower from Spider-Verse.
I feel like Miles being a Brooklynite, I feel like I think he definitely likes TV on the radio. I could see a cool just like montage scene, which I'm just pitching this now for whoever's listening, whether it's Insomniac or if it's the guys who made Into the Spider-Verse, who are probably going to be making Into the Spider-Verse too. I'm just pitching this now. Brooklynite band, TV on the radio. The song Young Liars. It's a really, really cool sort of like synthy organy song, and it would work really, really well in a really cool slow-mo scene of Miles Morales just like swinging through the streets in like nighttime with like neon lights, maybe some like rain. It could be like maybe like he just, something like bad kind of just happened and he's having like a contemplative moment and he's like, thinking, and he's more in his headspace than he is in the physical world around him, and that's why everything is kind of like slowed down, and that song is playing in the background. I'm just saying, like, if you use this idea, just give me a check.
Wow, I really that's why Dylan's our DM. That just weaving a narrative, a tapestry of words right there.
They can either give me a check or they can give me a writing credit, maybe a job. I'm open to all three of those options.
My comic book music pitch is I think Ty Segall would do a really great cover of the Batman theme song, like the na 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 na. Yeah, that's just for me.
That would
I think that would be good. I would love that. That'd be like the best thing. That'd be like the perfect culmination of life for me. The biggest crossover event in history. Truly, it would be two of my favorite boys in one song.
I think it would be really cool to see it could be like, I think DC, another idea pitch to the people at, DC Warner Brothers, a rebooted 60s superhero themed universe, like probably like a TV show universe, like ditch the whole like Arrowverse, like whatever that is,
Yeah.
the CW stuff,
I feel like
and
Green
do
Hornet, you could like, I mean, they kind of did a
yeah.
weird version of Green Hornet with Seth Rogen, but like that they could really do like I feel like at heart, it like Green Hornet is like kind of
Yeah,
that sort of 50s
yeah,
detective
yeah,
Inspector Gadget
exactly.
sort of.
Like some sort of like do like 60s sort of like campy Batman, do like the metal helmet Flash, do like the Green Lantern with the big cloak. Just do like a real old school style like JLA, but have all the music done in the style of like 60s like garage rock and like those theme songs, but have like current garage rock artists like do the covers and stuff. I feel like that would be really cool. I feel like you could really do some like fun things. Like if you had like, man, if you had like, I'm just picturing like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard doing like Killer Crocs like theme music or something like that, and like
There'd be a band that would like want to do a whole like conceptual
yeah, exactly.
soundtrack for it.
There'd be an entire album.
I It's like a market I wish was bigger. This is gonna be like a ridiculous phrase that's about to come out of my mouth, but it's something I would love and a market I would love to become bigger. But like indie superhero movies, I guess like the more Scott Pilgrim-esque style, and
Yeah.
I don't know, just like I get like a more artsy like superhero
No,
movie in a sense.
I know what you mean. I
Like
feel like
there is just
yeah.
it's hard because like it's these mega corporations that own these superheroes, so it's not like public domain stuff yet. But I want indie superhero movies.
Yeah. I feel like it'd have to be like it wouldn't work with every superhero. Like it
Yeah,
wouldn't work with like the superheroes who require like you wouldn't be able to have like an indie Iron Man because like they wouldn't be able to do like the suit and like the technology, like all
yeah,
the CGI needed for that. But like you could definitely do I think Batman is honestly like a pretty good hero for that because I feel like you could do a modest. I think it would be like it
you
would
want to
be
hear my
on the
pitch? You want to hear
yeah.
my
Let's hear it.
pitch?
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I'll try to keep it as short and sweet as I can. But my pitch idea would be um everyone knows Batman. You don't have to do any origin story stuff. Everyone gets the idea. Um, so I think like the first scene of my Batman movie would be at I don't know. I think it would either be at Bruce Wayne's funeral slash like Batman's funeral, or it would be like the heist slash crime where you just like basically in the beginning Bruce Wayne dies and in the whole movie is focused around the story battle for the cowl, which is about
Mm.
all the Robins after like Batman dies one of the many times when he
One of the
dies.
many.
um, the Robins all kind of battle for who takes the helm of Batman, and it's like you see Dick Grayson have this struggle of should he take on the identity of Batman when he is like stepped away from it and stuff. And I just think it would be such a cool movie. You could like it just with Batman and with so many superheroes, I feel like people get hung up on wanting to like do flashbacks and set up all
Yeah.
this stuff with these
Yeah.
characters. And I think even with this Robin movie, you could still do like flashbacks with all the Robins, kind of like maybe remembering their moment with Batman or something like that. But you really don't need to. I just like don't want a movie like centered around Bruce Wayne Batman necessarily anymore.
Yeah.
I think he like we get the idea of him, and there's so many other amazing characters just within like the Bat family that movie just kind of like would be so much fun. It would just be like
Yeah.
all these you have like Jason Todd doing like crazy Red Hood like evil Batman, and then you have Tim Drake trying to be like techie Batman, Damian Wayne just like being a little prick, hopping around.
being the Robin that no one likes.
But yeah, that's essentially my pitch. Is it would be a movie about Dick Grayson ultimately like
Yeah, obviously Dick Grayson wins. I mean,
yeah.
like you can't.
Or hey,
you can't...
maybe we have a fun surprise twist in the end. But but yeah, it would be
Batgirl.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential.
Let her be Batwoman.
But I think it would be fun, and then you could just set up a universe from there, and Dick Grayson could be the main Batman, and yeah, I would also want it to be over the course of like one night. It would be I think those are sometimes like some of the most exciting movies.
Thered have to be some sort of like cataclysmic thing happening that one night to motivate the need for Batman in that.
Yeah, like there's just like crime happening everywhere, and like people are just trying. It would be a fun flick. I think another episode can be our full
I know
the full script.
I've always thought for like the indie, I've always thought a really good character for the indie superhero movie that like I think absolutely shortchanged by an otherwise Marvel MCU is filled to the brim with characters who get excellent, fulfilling arcs. They get lots of character development across multiple movies.
I think I know where this is going.
They have satisfying endings.
I know exactly where this is going.
Fulfilling places. But one character, my boy,
it's Bucky, isn't it?
Nothing. He does nothing wrong.
It's Bucky, isn't it?
Yes, it's Bucky. Bucky. It's wrong what they did to Bucky. He will eventually become Captain America because it's the logical conclusion to his traumatic life. But I think the better story to tell, the indie flick, would be a really intense, like assassination movie in like the 70s, like with Winter Soldier Bucky, and like have him have some sort of like close call with breaking the, like maybe like it's the first time he ever like kind of breaks the programming, like in the middle of some sort of like deep mission for Hydra, and like have it be like ultimately a tragedy. Like it's ultimately they get him back, like he goes back to being the Winter Soldier, but like I don't know, he like there could be some really intense, like I really thought that that's what they were going to do with the Scarlet Witch movie. I thought they were going to do a flashback and have the Winter Soldier be the antagonist, because she talks about how he shot her, like in Winter Soldier, like when they're introducing him, she shows Captain America that scar she has, and she's like, yeah, he shot like the person I was protecting, like right through me. And I was like, oh shit, like that's a cool story. Like I'd love to see the Winter Soldier as like a bad guy again, because I thought he was a really good bad guy for like the more human superheroes like Captain America and Scarlet Witch. But now it just looks like the trailers, like while they look like, it's a fun, campy, like team thing, they look too bombastic, Like I didn't want Scarlet Witch. I keep saying Scarlet Witch. I didn't want Black Widow to be like jumping through the air and like shooting guys while like skydiving through fire.
Yeah,
like
I was very confused when you were saying Scarlet Witch before. I was like, what is he talking? What did I miss?
Like, I think the Black Widow movie, like, I kind of want like
no, because it's post Civil War.
Yeah,
I was gonna say you could still get that, but no, it's post Civil War.
Yeah, I do really think that there's both an amazing spy movie tucked away somewhere in the MCU, and I also think there's a really amazing, and I'm really sad that actually Scott Derrickson is not doing Doctor Strange 2 anymore, because I think that there's a really good horror movie waiting in the MCU if Marvel just
Sam Raimi is doing
I know, which I think
Doctor Strange 2
will be good, but I'm also hesitant that they I don't know. I'm hesitant that they're gonna. Sam Raimi is not really I don't think the like Evil Dead series is all that scary. Like the more I think about it, like the first one,
The first
one,
ones,
yeah, the
yeah,
first one was scary, but they delve into camp really, really.
yeah, yeah. After that, they just kind of they turn into like ultra cheese, but
Yeah,
it's at least the first Evil Dead I think is like
yeah.
is a pretty creepy flick for sure.
I'm really banking on. I mean, I love the things I've heard about the multiverse of madness. I'm really liking that it looks more and more like Scarlet Witch is gonna go sort of like broken mind, like causing some like reality power like gone amok type thing with like a resurrected. Did you ever read Avengers Disassembled?
No, I haven't.
It was right before it was like what led to the first Civil War
Mm.
line in the comics. But it was like Hawkeye dies, like Vision is dead. It's like Vision is dead, and that makes Scarlet Witch go really like emotionally crazy, and she creates this like mind in like this world in her mind that causes all these like problems that causes the Avengers to eventually break up. Um, but it looks like the TV show might actually kind of be using that a little bit as inspiration because like part of the thing is that like she's living in this like fantasy.
Yeah, like 1950s
Yeah,
kind of.
exactly, with Vision as her husband. And I'm thinking that they're setting up, I bet, because I'm skeptical of the MCU's ability to hold down Benedict Cumberbatch. So I'm thinking that we might even see Benedict Cumberbatch bow out in this next Doctor Strange movie, and they might be setting up either Scarlet Witch, or they said that they're also casting Brother Voodoo to put a new Sorcerer Supreme in.
Oh yeah.
It's Doctor Strange 2, either being Wanda or being Brother Voodoo, because Brother Voodoo becomes Doctor Voodoo in the comics, and he's a really cool character. I also, if they don't freaking introduce Ghost Rider in
It's
Multiverse of
too
Madness.
late. I think it's too. I think because Ghost Rider got done up in the Agents of Shield. I don't know if you're gonna be seeing Ghost Rider around. I'm sorry.
But I
They
don't think I think that they've kind of done away with the canonization of all the TV shows.
yeah.
I think they, while they were at first canon, I think all like the Inhumans, the Netflix shows,
Yeah. Yeah,
Agents of
they
Shield.
they had that was so bummer about the Netflix shows. They like made it seem like it's all gonna come together, even the Netflix shows, and it's like, oh, nope, we don't care about them.
Well, if
Cancel.
I know if they freaking do, if they get Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange 2, they got Scarlet Witch. If they can somehow get Daredevil and the Punisher back, and we're getting a Moon Knight, we know we're getting a Moon Knight. That
Yeah.
they could make Marvel Knights. They could literally, and we're getting Blade too. So
Yeah.
they could make a Marvel Knights. Like I think they should do like an MCU adjacent like horror mini universe, like it's within the universe, but like separate adventures. Like it could even be a TV show, or like on Disney Plus or something, where it's like a sort of more of like a horror focused like team that like takes on these like supernatural threats.
Yeah. Hey, do you think we should maybe talk about a little bit more music before we
Yeah.
finish up this episode? I only got one hot new. It's not even really new. It's a hot older single, I suppose. But Ty Segall and Corey Hansen, Ty Segall of Ty Segall and Corey Hansen of the band Wand, released "She's a Beam," which is a song that they released a performance, like a KEXP did like a in the woods at Pickathon thing with them, and they played this song, and it's so good that I honestly might like the acoustic version more than I even like this single version that they released. But they dug it up from the vault of somewhere, of wherever it was hiding, and finally like released the studio version, and it's cool. It's it's just a nice. They complement each other well. Ty and Corey Hansen, they're both kind of like that '60s psych rock sound, and this song definitely has that kind of psychedelic Beatles-y kind of vibe, and then that weird Ty tone. thrown right on top of that. So she's Beam, and also too, if you buy it on Bandcamp, it gets donated to the Black Lives Matter movement out in California. So it is a good thing to buy and listen to with your ears.
Yeah, I love that album art too. It's like that big old burb.
Yeah. There's another single on it too, song on it too. I don't remember the name of it. I haven't listened to it
Milk
much.
Bird Flyer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Milk Bird. Yeah, I gave this a listen to when you gave me a heads up about it, and it's real cool. I'm always glad to hear more Ty. And Corey Hansen, while Wand is a band that I definitely I feel bad for not having kept up with their music. I do really really like their album Gollum, and I have that on vinyl. And I do know that like while that's much more of like kind of like a heavy sort of psychedelic like heavy kind of sludgy sound. I know that they've really like changed their sound a little bit with their last album, especially. Like I remember hearing the lead single off that, and it was like a much more sort of like 60s sort of folk psychedelic kind of sound to it, kind of like also the direction that I feel like Ty has kind of headed in with his last few albums, is like getting more towards like a really eclectic psychedelic sound instead of just like a psychedelic sound that's like reliant on just like distorted sludgy guitars. There's like a lot of other things going on in the mix.
Yeah, it's a great single. She's Beam. Listen to that one, and we got another one over in that garages in the Garage Boy zone.
Garages. Yeah, this is a single from a Chicago band, Ganser. I believe we've discussed a single of theirs probably quite a few episodes ago at this point. This is
Oh
also
wait, I thought for a second I thought this was that John Dwyer project.
oh no, but I that too.
I
Well, we'll
forgot.
talk about that in a sec, because
Yeah.
yeah, I actually totally, excuse me. Yeah, that also. But Ganser, yeah, Ganser is a real cool post-punk band from Chicago. And this single came out like late May, so again, another single that I think kind of flew under my radar a little bit, but saw it the other day, listened to it, and totally different than what I was expecting, which really blew me away. Ganser, the stuff that I've heard of theirs that I really like is sort of like more sort of like a noise rock, post punk kind of sound. But this song Bag of Life is like very different. It's more like there's almost like horns or something, I want to say, that like drive the song, like, and it's just hard to describe because it is a totally different just like a kind of almost like a reinvention of like their sound that I like it, but it'll take me hearing their whole album to figure out like how I position this new sound with their old stuff. And so I'm excited to hear the album when it comes out. I don't have an exact date for that, but they've released 3 singles so far, so it must be right around the corner. Usually
Yeah,
third
3.
single is last single. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll check that one out. I remember you showing me those other singles beforehand, and I remember their band, if I recall correctly, that instrumentally I was really into, but the vocals didn't hook me as much. But I'll check out the single. Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah, and that song, the last one that we were kind of like mentioning earlier, is a new side project of John Dwyer of the OC's fame and Kit Malone of TV on the Radio, who I was talking about earlier when we were talking about Spider-Man. They have a new sort of like jazz fusion prog psychedelic band, which is just like all those words mixed together again is one of those like genre mumbo jumbo. I feel like that kind of doesn't make any sense, but also like makes total sense if like you're obsessed with like genres and genre modifiers like we are. But they're called Bent Arcana. I think another very clear Dungeons and Dragons reference from the mind of John Dwyer. Love to see it. I'm sad to admit I actually have not yet given this a listen. It's on Bandcamp and I have it like in my little listen to next list, but I just keeps circling around it, and I keep forgetting to listen to it. I believe it's a long boy. I believe it's
Yeah.
like a 10 or more minute song, which I'm really excited to get into. I when I saw that it was John Dwyer and TV on the Radio, I was like really excited by the idea of that, because those are two artists that I didn't like. I don't know. I just never really thought that they were like would float in the same circles. But now that I kind of think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because I feel like they were both just in sort of the indie underground at the same time, like sort of mid to late 2000s era. And so I'm excited to see what those two musical sort of like minds sound like when you mash them together into this super group. There's some other people in the band, and I do believe that they are from other bands as well, but I'm really blanking on who those other members are or what bands they come from. I do feel bad about that, but I'll do my research for next time, and I'll give a progress report on the status of that listen.
All right. Well, I think that is just about our sode here, an abbreviation for episode. If you did not pick up on that, sode. Thanks for listening, Dylan. Perfume Genius. What do you think? Set My Heart on Fire immediately. You gonna listen again?
The whole album, honestly, probably not. I'll definitely give some of these songs quite a few listens more. They're definitely a couple tracks. Describe, Without You, Your Body Changes Everything. I think those three are my three favorite on the album, and those definitely could find their way onto quite a few different playlists. But I don't really know if this is an album that like I'm yearning to listen to every like little nook and cranny again. But it's definitely it's definitely an impressive feat, and I could not fault somebody for liking this album.
I think I'm excited to dive back into it. At least after this listen I had right before we recorded, I was just like, something about it hooked me a lot more on the last listen, and I want to go back again. But I could see myself ending up at kind of like a similar conclusion as you, with just kind of, there's those singles on it that I really do love, but ultimately I think I'm just gonna stick with some singles, and not really listen to a lot of it, but I'm gonna give it a couple more listens, because it is something really cool. And if you like that ethereal, spacey kind of sound, check this out. If you just like, it's really all over the place. I don't know, hard to pin it down to one genre. To say if you like this, you might like this. It's really all over the place. You should just check it out. All right.
Couldn't put it better myself.
Oh, Dylan, you set my heart on fire.
I did it immediately.
That's the best we're gonna do this time.